So King Lear Mindmap Part 3. Don't forget, go to your textbook or to your notes book for paper 2. Go to page 97, you see where this begins. And now we're in the last stage of our analysis of Lear's journey through the play. It's not comprehensive, but if you knew what was in this map, you've got an enormous amount of knowledge to bring with you into the exam. So by Act 3, Lear has broken with his daughters Goneril, Regan and Cordelia. And he's out in the storm and he's mad. He's described by a gentleman, one of his retinue, to Kent. This night, unconnected he runs and bids what will take all. Unconnected he runs. He's manic. He's not behaving in a logical way. He's lost his mind. Bids what will take all is interesting. It means he's calling for the end of the world. Now, this is again evidence of his pompous, self-important nature. Lear's world has collapsed in on top of itself because of his own mistakes, because of his own actions. But because the world has collapsed in on top of him, he wants the world, his personal world has collapsed. He's calling for the end of the world. So while we do feel we are developing a sense of sympathy for him and empathy with him, we're constantly reminded of that powerful hubris that is at the core of his personality. We then meet him in Act 3 out in the storm. Blow, winds, rage and crack your cheeks. Rage, blow. It's really fascinating, indication of him completely out of control. But what's really interesting is what he's calling for. He's calling for a storm so bad that the steeples will be drenched, that the cocks will be drowned. So the highest building in a Elizabethan town was the church, and the church steeple was the highest point, and at the top of the church steeple was the wind vane, which contained the cocks, the cockerel. So he's calling for so much rain that even they will be covered. Now, if there was that much rain, that much flood, then there's no life left, then the world is destroyed. So he's calling for hurricanes and cataracts and thunderbolts because he wants the world to suffer. He wants ingrateful man to suffer. That's not attractive. That's the Lear, the vain man of Act 1 that we are alienated from. But within this madness, there are also moments of insight. It's in this moment that he says the famous line, "I am a man more sinned against than sinning." It's really significant. I know it's not the best quote in the play. A lot of people, it's the only quote they know of the play. What does it mean? Well, he means he's feeling sorry for himself. He thinks his daughters have treated him abysmally. But it also means he's starting to recognise that he played a role himself in this scenario, in his suffering, in the disaster that has unfolded. He's admitting that he has sinned. So it's a significant moment, a significant step towards what's coming, which is the transformation, where he's cleansed through suffering of his hubris, and his hubris is substituted for a sense of humility, a humble awareness of his human failings. By Act 3, Scene 4, that conflict within him is becoming more and more heightened in his madness. He talks about the tempest in his mind taking from all pain of the storm. He's not bothered by the exposure to the storm, he says, because the storm in his mind and the outrageous sense of filial ingratitude is more painful than any physical suffering that he might endure. So that idea of suffering and the combination of the physical and the psychological is so important here. These are the ingredients that will combine to bring about change when he is reconciled with Cordelia in the next act. For me, my favourite quote to do with Lear in the play, and it sums up why I'm absolutely in love with Shakespeare. I have been since I first read Shakespeare when I was in, second year in school, is because, first of all, the language is beautiful. I know you might not agree, but it is. It's just beautiful. But it's those unbelievable insights that Shakespeare gives into human nature in every single play that are as fresh and relevant today as they were when the play was written. And at the very, very top of those are this moment here when Lear sees poor Tom naked and starved and mad and vulnerable. And he says, "Oh, I have taken too little care of this. Take physic, pomp. Expose thyself to feel what wretches feel." I mean, first of all, "I have taken too little care of this" is Lear admitting that he's failed in his duty to the people of Britain. He's saying, I was so obsessed with myself and my own interest that I didn't look after the vulnerable. So there he is, through his own suffering and viewing Tom's suffering, really growing as a man, even at this late stage of his life, becoming a better, more self-aware man. But then that line, "Take physic, pomp." Take physic means take your medicine. Pomp is hubris, arrogance, vanity. And what he's saying is, powerful people need a dose of reality. They need to expose themselves to the suffering of those less fortunate than them. And that's Lear's dawning sense of awareness of how much he allowed himself to be blinded by his own sense of self-importance. But it's also a message that, my God, is it not relevant in the world in which we live in 2024? I think it is. By the end of Act 3, Kent says he's totally mad. All the power of his wits have given way to his impatience. We get the mock trial. We see his powerful remaining, and it never goes away, his sense of injustice at the way Goneril and Regan have treated him. But then in Act 4, he's reconciled with Cordelia. And this is the final ingredient that will lead to his transformation and his change. And the language that he uses, don't forget, the last time you saw Cordelia was Act 1, Scene 1. Thou my sometime daughter, nothing will come of nothing. He was brutally cruel to her. But the tenderness and the love that he feels and the sense of appreciation and the humiliation at his own behaviour that's expressed in this scene really does bring us to a point where we go, do you know what? Yeah, you're a bully and a fool, but you're also a human being. And, there's definitely empathy. He says to her, "I'm a very foolish, fond old man." Can you imagine Lear of Act 1 saying that? He says, "Pray weep not. If you have poison for me, I will drink it. I know you do not love me, for your sisters have, as I do remember, done me wrong. You have some cause, they have not." He's saying sorry. You have some cause. Now, he's wrong about the sisters. They have some cause too. What they've done is they've gone too far. But he's saying sorry. He's humble. He's saying, I was wrong. He's apologising. He's human. He's frail. He's transformed. He's different. He's no longer hubristic. Now his character is marked by a powerful sense of humility or a sense of being humble. There is hope with Cordelia's army, but of course Cordelia's army, as Shakespeare, maybe if you want to ask me in a live class, I'll explain why Shakespeare couldn't have a French army in his play defeating a British army. But it's Lear's reaction to the defeat and his capture. It shows the fundamental change in him. There's no sense of, how dare you, how dare you imprison me? I'm the king. He says, come, let's await the prison. We two alone will sing like birds in a cage. When thou dost ask me blessing, I'll kneel down and ask for forgiveness. And so we live and pray and sing and tell old tales and laugh at gilded butterflies and hear poor rogues talk of court news. It is certainly the key quote from the end of the play from Lear. If you just knew, we two alone will sing like birds in a cage and laugh at gilded butterflies. Just such a transformation in his attitude. He doesn't care if he's locked up. He doesn't care if he's no power. He doesn't care if he's humiliated. What he cares about, what he sees is, what matters is not reputation and stature and prestige and power and What matters is family, what matters is love, and as long as he has her, he's okay. And then he also sees how power is transient and ephemeral, temporary, doesn't last. And Shakespeare uses this brilliant metaphor, gilded butterflies. Gilded is golden. So the idea of like somebody who has power being golden, but also being like a butterfly. And butterflies, by their very nature, don't exist for very long. So he's aware of the fact that power is not something that is to be relied upon. Love is something that gives life meaning. And again, a wonderful, wonderful insight from Lear at the end of the play. We know, though, that all of the suffering in the world of the play ultimately traces itself back to his actions. We know he abdicated. We know that as a consequence of the division of the kingdom and his attempt to hold on to power while simultaneously handing over power, Goneril dies, Regan dies, Edmund dies. I'm not saying they will look at their mind maps, they're at fault and they, deserve what they get, but they're dead. Gloucester dies. There's a horrific battle. All these unspoken thousands of soldiers, and there's been unbelievable suffering in the play. Cordelia dies. He can't have a happy ending. He's a tragic hero, and Shakespeare gives him the ending that is just so apt and suitable. He has been transformed, but he can't walk away from the consequences of what he's done. So he ends the play tragically. The final image of him walking on stage, howl, 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 talking about Cordelia. She's gone forever. I know when one is dead and when one lives, she's dead as earth. And, this heart broken. And then holding her, putting her down, sitting down on the ground. And his last words significantly not being for himself, but being for her. Showing how he no longer is that man whose first and last thought will always be for himself. Look on her. Look, her lips. Look there. Look there. His death is tragic. But it is a self-inflicted wound. He is a fascinating character. And his story is complex and interesting and dramatic and thought-provoking. Final thing to mention. Hubris is at the core of the play, especially if you're writing about him or you're writing about about power in the play. So I think it's wise for you to have a look at that note in the last box in your mind map. You see all those synonyms? I try to learn them and try to integrate them into my analysis of Lear's character if I have to write about Lear's character. That's Lear's mind map. Took 3 videos, but we have it done.